All right, so let's have a look at what happened in our last duo of sessions. Just to catch everyone up, we had two sessions, session number 5, which was called Northern Means, and session number 6, which was Hundlestone Hunt. So let's go back to the beginning of session 5. This was hot off the heist in Luskan, where the party bolted on foot to rendezvous with Darlan and Barton, the two dwarves that were staying with the caravan up to the northern expanse. So they were waiting, which is great, and running hard for the life of them. There was a roll, which Kaelin picked up a point of exhaustion, but that's been negated so far, which is great. As you were closing on the waiting caravan with a very nervous-looking duo of dwarves, both the Magicianess and Lara started looking a little worse for wear, deathly pale, in fact. As they both came closer towards the getaway vehicle, both the Magicianess and Lara, both struggling to stay conscious, very quickly drifted off into unconsciousness. This was just with both players being away. With an excellent duo of rolls, Weiss was able to tell that they had been poisoned, even to the extent that the poison that was responsible was a purple worm poison, which is horrifically potent, but thankfully this was a slightly lesser version of that. And Kaelin also was able to quickly draw the common threads together that both had been poisoned whilst handling the Heartweaver's primer. It was sneakily inlaid with some tiny poisoned pins, and Kaelin was able to disarm the trap and retain the book for the Magicianess. So, all the while, with the two unconscious members of the party now in tow, riders bearing torches began to ride fast out of the north gate of Luskan. So obviously with everything that happened, looks like there was someone that was in pursuit. Maybe not knowing that you guys were there, but quickly running out to try and stop anyone that was leaving the city. So Sterling took the reins and he very successfully sped the caravan off into the night, which was a shame because I had a tactical encounter ready to go, which was called Escalating Hostilities, but that's okay. We'll be able to use that one a bit further down the track. So, travelling along the Northern Means, which is the massive road that is heading up towards Icewind Dale, right across this stretch here. Whilst travelling, we could see that snow is beginning to dust the landscape. Powdered treetops and light flurries of snow are consistently present now, so we're starting to get into the cold weather aspect. And while travelling, the party spotted a lone figure travelling north. Pulling aside the caravan, startled a halfling man, very nervous traveller, and was quick to request a ride north to Hundlestone. This was Oleander Spriggan, or Ollie, an NPC that joined in for a session. Weiss was able to spot a wand at his side. He didn't seem to be overtly equipped for combat. And talking to him, he is more of an academic, an archaeologist, and introduced himself as Ollie, or otherwise known to his students as Professor Spriggan. There was a brief discussion about Strixhaven, Candlekeep and other planes, and Ollie quickly changed the subject and realised that he probably spoke more than he should have, and offered to draw out an explanation later. While chatting on the road, there was an ambush that was sprung. There was a trio of winter wolves and a very large multi-headed frost giant, which was pretty beefy. It did a lot of damage. So they managed to score a surprise round, and Sterling, Weiss and Ollie took the brunt of the attack. Off a single frost wolf attack, Ollie lost about a third of his health, and Sterling came down to somewhere around the 20 health points mark after getting smashed twice by this massive giant. Hard hitter, really hard hitter. So Ollie used an interesting trick. He used Time Heal to set himself back to full health by basically reverting his body's physical state back about 10 seconds, which is a neat trick. And then we came through. Sterling did his usual thing and unloaded with a huge barrage. But the party did really well to stave off any kind of tactical advantage that the Wolves might gain. Given that we weren't at full health, there were some tactics that might have been left out, but that's okay. But while Sterling was dishing up a massive amount of damage, now having the Piercer feat, Giant had him clocked and was literally ready to swing a fatal blow. But Carrot jumped in at the last moment, teleported. I can't remember what the ability or the spell was now, but spared Sterling because he took the damage and was still pretty robust. With that intervention being complete, Weiss was the one that killed most of the things on the field. Massive killing cleave. She hacked the thing to death with a massive downward stroke, and she followed up with taking out one of the Winter Wolves as well, completely just going into Berserker mode, which was pretty awesome. Caitlin also showed off some pretty cool abilities. Using a longbow, she was able to pick out some of the fleeing wolves with great deal of accuracy. Also, in the wake of battle, the new Traveller Ollie didn't look like this was his kind of thing. He looked like he was about to lose his lunch, but Sterling managed to kind of bolster him and keep him going, keep him from losing his lunch. So we came to the loot at the end of that session. There was an oversized great axe, which Carrot seemed to be keen at the idea of trying to swing one of those around. There was some +2 leather armor, which is pretty handy. A duo of wolf pelts, but there was also a belt of frost giant strength. So this went to Weiss, and she has now got the might of a giant. I think at one point Ollie asked her if she felt any difference, and her response was to go full Super Saiyan and almost made the entire area explode just by flexing. So she's a beast now, definitely. So after that, continuing on, Weiss found a very well-known space that was very easily to defend and was hidden from the road. Having her as a local has proved to be very, very, very useful. And after taking some shifts, the party made it through a really quiet night. The success in the survival roll by Weiss made it an easy night, which was good. Which was good because given that two halflings, Ollie and Carrot, were on watch together, and they rolled really badly. They spent more time being excited about trying out Sterling's goggles of night rather than keeping watch. But it was uneventful. It was fine. So in the morning, the party made their way to Hundlestone. At this point, we move over into session 6. So now that we've touched down in Hundlestone, it's a formidable little town. It's still a frontier town. It's basically the last stop before hitting Icewind Dale. The party took some time to rest. We were missing a couple of characters, so this was just a supplemental session. So the Magicianess broke out of her kind of poison-induced coma, but Lara was still out. So they found lodgings within a place called the Hopping Hare, which was a guest house. Also, Carrot took some time to really sleep and recover, as well as Sterling, take care of Lara, make sure that she didn't kind of perish or anything along those lines. Instead of being upstairs, everything is kind of underground in Hundlestone. Given the cold, everything is a lot more kind of the dwarven design of digging down instead of building up. So while hanging out the rustic bar, Kaylin, Weiss, and the Magicianess enjoyed a few overpriced beverages. Weiss bumped into an old flame, Eliza. She's slight but imposing, a hunter-trapper, and there was a slight heated exchange between Weiss and Eliza, which drove Weiss to go and tie up some loose ends before heading on. So we kind of swapped out Weiss for Eliza for a session, which was nice. While Weiss was away, Eliza was very jealous of the Magicianess, kind of scrutinizing and trying to understand what does she see in her, being a little bit protective over Weiss, and Kaelin kind of overseeing from afar, taking a pretty good role in this, not only kind of keeping an eye on Eliza and making sure that nothing went out of control, but also picked up on some chatter from numerous hunters in the tavern, that there were people going missing, and there was talk of a Yeti being on the prowl. So there was another figure in the tavern as well. This was Isaac's friend that joined us for a session, which was lovely. This was a leather-clad woman with a rapier at her waist and introduced herself as Christabel. She was seeking a bit of work to get herself back on the road. While the barkeep was tending and doing his thing, he made his way over very noisily, because he rolled terrible with his stealth, to Eliza and gave her an inside tip on a Yeti sighting that was just outside of town. So quickly, this little impromptu group moved out towards where this sighting was, and they found the remains of a body. Not definable, which is a bit grisly, but it was human. So moving on, and as night began to fall, a tribe of Yetis sprang an ambush on the party, and as a half dozen Yetis began to kind of swarm in and encircle and get quite a good tactical leg up, Kaelin took point, and she used her darkness to confuse the attackers and protect herself, and also tank, which was fantastic. And then the Magicianess blew everything up. She let rip with her own personal nuke. The transmuted torrent of fiery lightning just tearing through the pack, and pretty much left most of the assailants completely charred. So there was still some more Yetis that kind of came in at the back. Christabel summoned a Vrock and jumped atop its back and absolutely tore apart a bunch of the remaining creatures as well. And as more of the Yetis began to close in, the fall of night was restricting vision for most. Most could see out to 60. The Magicianess really struggled because of her unaltered vision, which is probably something she might need to address. But she couldn't see anything, which was pretty terrifying, because in the distance there was a much larger beast lurking. No one else could see it except for Kaelin, and Kaelin was trying to warn everything that this thing was lurking, that it was coming, that it was sitting back. It was freaking her out, and when it made itself known, it had a pretty nasty ice breath attack that almost took the Magicianess and Eliza out. But look, Christabel with her mounted Vrock did an excellent job of harassing and kind of taking its attention. But Kaelin dug deep, and she absolutely unleashed a storm of arrows into this final beast, and nailed it with multiple crits. She absolutely devastated the thing. And she basically set up the final blow for the Magicianess, who just ignited it with a final fireball. The thing flaming like a pyre. It was quite a good win. So on the back of that was where we ended the second session. Where we're going to pick up from in our next session is we're coming back into Hundlestone. Everyone is going to be rested. You're going to have the ability to do some shopping if you want, maybe have a look at some gear, provisions, anything that we might need. But from here, we're going to be heading north on the 10 trail up towards Brinchander. So Brinchander is the main town within Icewind Dale. So this will be pretty much possibly the first session of us actually hitting the content within the campaign. Maybe. But first, we've got a pretty good stretch to head towards, and we've got an internal night to begin navigating, which is going to be very, very interesting. So look, I think I'll leave the update there. Feel free to ask me any questions if we want to firm anything up before we get to our session on Saturday. But take it easy, guys. Have a lovely week, and I shall see you on Saturday.